Welcome to the CU 2.0 podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the CU 2.0 podcast with big new ideas about credit unions and conversations about innovative technology with credit union and fintech leaders. This podcast is brought to you by Quillo, the real-time loan syndication network for credit unions, and by your host, longtime credit union and financial technology journalist Robert McGarvey. And now, the CU 2.0 podcast with Robert McGarvey.
Agentic AI is coming to credit unions, and Saris AI is helping lead the charge. What is Agentic AI? It's a good question. Agentic AI acts as an agent that autonomously executes multi-step workflows. That's to say, Agentic AI does. It doesn't tell you what to do, it does it for you. Saris AI says it can automate 70% of tedious, complex back-office tasks in a credit union. It says it delivers a 300% productivity increase and a 9.8 times cost reduction. A core focus is lending, but Saris AI also helps with other areas of credit union operations that would benefit from automation. That's lots of places. Does that sound like a revolution? Indeed, indeed. On the show are Daniel Jamil, Saris CEO and co-founder, and Chase Clelland, SVP of People and AI, Grow Financial, federal credit union, a $3.8 billion institution headquartered in Florida. Note that Clelland talks at length not only about the benefits of this agentic AI, but how to prep employees in working with it. And he says Grow's policy is no staff reductions due to AI implementations. It's a good story about how to improve employee acceptance of these new tools that indeed represent an unfolding workplace revolution. As for exactly what's involved in the revolution, the technology, Jamil is the man to tell what this means for credit unions, and he does on the show. Know this too, Clelland is adamant that the credit unions that are embracing AI will soon be in a much better place than those that don't. Listen up. So we're going to talk about Agentic AI.
Perfect.
Oh, you're a product of the University of Toronto AI.
Yes, I am.
And that is what's that guy's name? Hinton, I think.
Yep, Professor Hinton. He did win the Nobel Prize. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, he's an absolute genius. So it's quite a good credential to have, I think. Now, we're going to talk about Agentic AI. And credit unions have been talking about AI a lot for the last year or so, doing very little of any consequence. Mm-hmm. And your argument is that what they really need is Agentic AI. But first, tell me what Agentic AI is in the context of a credit union.
Yeah, so I would say Agentic AI, and again, we have new buzzwords that tie into specific technical shifts. The first one was generative AI, or GPT, and we're familiar with that. And the analogy, a good way to think about this is past few years, we sort of developed this cognitive brain, right? Or, using transformer networks or foundational models or generative AI, you can use whichever term you want. And it was a shift up in terms of cognition because now you sort of had this thinking system, which was, potentially, now it's surpassing even PhD students. So it's this intelligent system that you can train it with words and the English language or other languages as well. And it can interact with you. It can respond to you. It can understand context. And that's been one of the, challenges in the industry for a while in AI is that you can get algorithms to do exactly what you want them to do, pick up data from A, put it to B, but do they actually have context? Can they actually reason? So that was the first shift is we built a brain more or less like a human, which is why we call it neural networks, which is based off, the neural networks humans have. And then from there, the next question came in is, okay, now we've built the brain. So now let's build a body around this, right? And obviously it's a digital brain, so it sort of needs digital arms and digital legs and, digital mobility. And then that's really where the whole concept of agentic systems comes in, is that we have this capability that's fairly smart. Now, how do we connect it to the rest of the world, right? It's sitting in this black box right now. So how do we, connect it to different systems? How do we get it to do tasks that, initially or earlier on, it was just in the realms of human beings. So how do we get it to do these complicated stuff and tasks? And that's what an agent is. Just like you have, biological employees, the future of work, in the industry is humans and AIs working together. You also have synthetic, employees, and they kind of like everyone's collaborating with who does, well in each domain. So yeah.
Well, what attracted you to credit unions as potential customers?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's one of those where sometimes, well, often founders will just fall in love with a problem, and for me, it was really the impact. And it's funny, I wouldn't name, I was talking to one of the large GSIB banks, one of their heads, and we had an amazing conversation. And one thing that kind of stood out was, the large folks are not serving what I consider the heart and soul of the U.S. economy, right? Which is the small businesses, which is your lumber mill in Arkansas, or helping a young family in a small town get their first mortgage to buy their first home. So you have thousands of these credit unions and all across the U.S. who are enabling that. And I think that's amazing, right? Like the Fortune 1000s, and look, I'm in the tech sector, we grow really fast, and there's a lot of excitement and hype. But, you know, let's be fair, like the largest banks are not serving the needs of the majority or the middle of America, or the vast, what, as I said, the heart and soul of the US. And I think that's really where the credit unions come in and shine. They're providing services that the others are just not willing to. And I've heard statements like not our risk profile, right? So, and Chase is probably smiling because he's probably, heard that story as well. So that's what I think sort of fell in love with credit unions, and our journey, started from there.
Yeah, I would add into that. I think the purpose-driven work versus being profit-driven is something that attracts people to the credit union movement.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get credit unions to think that this was possible? Credit unions are very slow moving when it comes to adopting new technology.
I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, of course, it's a regulated industry, and credit unions tend to move slower. But at the same time, when you're going through large technological shifts, it's important not to get left behind, right? So it's sort of like the internet. Once it came in, it was sort of this shift where you just cannot operate without that, right? Email is a good example of that. And so right now we're going through, what many are considering probably the most impactful or the fastest moving industrial revolution. Like, this is the next industrial revolution, where, you have biological intelligence, but also synthetic intelligence. And a lot of things are changing. And so I can kind of share maybe the story of how we started. And a friend of mine, an acquaintance, was a president, well, is a president of a credit union based out of Illinois. And this was back when GPT 3.5 first came up, right? Like 2 years ago, everyone was excited and all these capabilities. And really, he was just wondering that, is this something that could help our community, right? And could enable and improve that member experience. And so really that was a single thread where he said, hey, you're kind of like the AI person, would you love to come in and take a look? I'm like, absolutely. So I came in, I brought in my two co-founders, who I worked with in my last company, which was also in the machine learning space, but more towards higher education. So we came in, and basically we spent it was supposed to be a day engagement, but we spent the entire week just learning the intricacies of the back office, right? And really realizing, like the kinds of tasks that, in credit unions, humans are doing, which is not best suited for their, like it's not the best use of their time. But they still do it because they deeply care about the mission. They deeply care about that member experience, right? So from there, we start to build this out and really enable that, where, hey, the future of work here is humans plus AI. It's not humans versus AI, where, for AIs, they take care of a lot of this back office, tedious, complex tasks that the humans don't enjoy, what we call the soul sucking work. And that really enables the humans to focus on the member experience, the high impact work, the strategic decision making. And so we started from that thread, and we quickly realized that, well, now these teams are operating on average, 180% more productivity and faster. We've got loan times. I'll just give an example for consumer loans that are taking a fully funded loan could be about 80 to 100 pages long, that are taking anywhere from 35 minutes all the way to a couple of hours to process. Now it's happening in 7 minutes or less through the use of AI. So that I think is fantastic, because now the member is happier because they're getting a faster approval time. Loans are getting funded faster. And the human teams in these credit unions are happier as well, because they get to do more, with the same, and they don't have to deal with a lot of those back end, complex tasks.
Now, at least one credit union helped fund your Series A round.
Yes, that is correct.
So how many credit unions are you working with at this point?
So I would say we don't share exact numbers. We do work with credit unions and community banks all across, and I would say one of the larger G-SIBs. But I would say the credit union, it's still under 20.
No, that's anything more than 2 is okay. And you've also done work with Catalyst Credit Union, I think.
Yes, we have.
And that's a corporate credit union, which is corporate credit unions. It took me quite a while to figure out what they were. Yeah. I mean, even in the credit union business, they're kind of esoteric.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe Catalyst is serving about 850 different credit unions all across the US. So they're very well respected, widely utilized. And, we're working with Diana, their CIO, who's just amazing. Just seeing incredible data. Like, they're blown away. I mean, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was, we're one of the best, if not the best AI success story I've seen.
So how do you get started with a credit union? You need to integrate with the core.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just the core. I would say it depends on their system. So we will integrate with your core. We will integrate with your LOS. So whatever systems or records or repositories you have, we connect with all of them. The idea here, I think the shift with AI is, before you would have vendors come in, they would build a system, whether it's your LOS or your core or any ancillary system. Then humans had to be trained on those systems and those SOPs, and that's how they would operate, right? That's what we call software, 1.0, the pre-AI era. In the AI era, the human is at the center of the loop. So it's the AI, or our at Saris, we come in, we will connect with all of the existing systems. We then personalize and understand how your teams or a credit union team is operating, right? And then the AI is tied to their workflow for the humans. And I think that's something that has changed, is that with this cognitive shift, software cannot adapt to the human needs versus humans having, to be trained to use the software. So Saris literally, clicks, and, Chase can talk more about that. That was part of his vision, is how do we enable and unlock people and AI together. But yeah, that's the type of change we're seeing.
What's the reaction of employees when you begin to implement this?
I think we get a series of different reactions. In fact, I was on site yesterday. I mean, this whole week we were in the East Coast, and I just got back to the West Coast, just meeting with 3 different credit unions, and we get a series of different reactions. Often, first is, there's no way this is possible, right? Like, it looks like a good demo, but can you actually show it? And then when we show it, initially, there's also fears like, how does it impact me? And I think that's very normal, right? Is this technology going to impact my career, my job, and so on? And one thing we make very clear, as far as our mission, and it's actually codified in our vision, is we're creating the future of work, which is humans and AIs working together. So all critical approvals and so on, you still need human in the loop. Otherwise, it does not operate without that. And then the third reaction we get is, once they actually see, and this is what happened last week, we heard, I absolutely love this. My jaw is dropping. And if it can actually do this, we've also heard stories. For another example I'll share with you, we had a team which was working, every day, trying to clear a backlog from 5 p.m. all the way till 9:30 p.m., 5 days a week, because they had to get another new backlog 8 in the morning. With Saris AI, within 2 weeks, they weren't staying up till 9:30, 10 p.m. Everyone was going home at 6:20 so they could be with their families. So they're really happy about that, right? So I think once you start using it and you realize that every team member has an intelligent assistant where you can assign them a whole range of complex tasks to do for you, the productivity increases, the happiness and the well-being of the teams increase because now they can delegate a whole range of different tasks. Often folks are doing a lot in credit unions. We don't realize that, but they are. So we help enable all of those things. And I'm curious to learn, Chase, what are you seeing? What would your answer be to this?
Yeah, I think the answer I would put in place is it depends on the leadership. And there's a lot of FUD, fear and uncertainty and doubt around AI, just generally in the news cycles. You'll see things about Amazon laying off engineers because they put AI in place. And it's really not necessarily true. AI is being blamed for some of those layoffs, but it's not a direct result of the AI. We've taken a very strategic approach from my level down, talking to our team members saying AI is not here to replace you. People that use AI effectively will replace you if you don't get on board. So we're trying to ensure that we bring the humans and robots together, living symbiotically together in a happy environment and giving back time for our humans in the loop to do the best things that humans do, which is judgment, handling exceptions, the emotional quotient things of connecting with people. So that's our approach, and we are absolutely embedding Agentic AI, as you well know, Daniel, into our credit union. We've also provisioned Copilot for every single employee at our Copilot to give a personal productivity tool in the hands of every single employee. Doesn't matter what level or job you have access to Copilot. We've seen tremendous success through that. We've had about an 85% adoption rate with the use of active use in Copilot weekly from every single employee that's licensed. We're really proud of that fact, and we're trying to drive to 100%. But we have moved into a phase 2 approach, which is our Agentic AI embedded in workflows to help augment our team members. And then I have a third kind of desired phase, what we might be a nirvana state that we might not ever get to, essentially. But that third state would be end-to-end processes, back-end processes handled by AI, and then allowing our team members to be able to do the things, again, that we do best, which is human connection. And I talked to my CEO about my nirvana state would be, what if we could make our back-end processes really handled by AI, exception queues go out to humans in the loop, and then everybody's out on the streets developing relationships and bringing members back into the credit union and developing our brand, et cetera. And that's kind of an end state that I don't think we'll ever get to, but that's kind of, where I'm trying to march towards is how do we get as much AI interaction so we can put our humans connecting with other humans and drive our brand and our market and help our neighbors.
Now, how did you explain agentic AI to the employees? It sounds as though, oh, you're bringing in something to replace me.
Yeah, that's a great question. The things through demonstration of, like Saris, for instance, coming in and showcasing what an agentic AI is, but explaining to a human around, we're working on a funding piece right now. So we get a dealer packet that comes in, and you've got a litany of documents that you need to cross-check, make sure that the VIN numbers match the deal that we approved. There's 24 different data points, essentially, that they got to look through. The AI can do that way faster, way more accurately, and be able to code that information back into our system for the funding area much more accurately. You don't have to worry about fat fingering of information, transposing numbers incorrectly. And so allowing the AI to be able to take care of that, which then allows our funding team not to handle that piece, which I don't think people really wake up in the morning and get fired up to go send emails or file paperwork or transpose numbers. I don't think that's really what humans are, waking up on their daily task and say, this is what I want to do for a living. We want to make a difference in somebody's life. So we talk a lot about how this tool will take care of that mundane stuff, the soul-sucking work that Daniel referenced earlier, and allow our team members to actually do the things that make more purpose and then use their brain much more effectively than just transposing numbers from here to there. And so we just kind of work through those examples and give them that credibility, if you will, around what we're trying to intend to this and show the outcome of what they then can be doing, which is the stuff they actually want to do.
Now, how easy was it to implement the Saris tools at your credit union?
Yeah, so we're underway with Saris. We're actually getting delivered next week. I think our first bot that will be in production, which will be fantastic. What attracted me to Saris, I saw Saris originally at Finovate, and that was a fantastic conference. They're demonstrating the project up on top of, 7 minute, essentially a stage Shark Tank style kind of experience was pretty eye catching to me. And I went and started talking to them, and then through those engagements, had a really good feeling about Saris, both from Daniel's perspective, but also all the team members, his co-founders that I talked to, his sales organization that I engaged with a ton. Just everybody there really seemed to be driven by a similar purpose to us at the credit union. And when we had concerns, they very effectively addressed our concerns. And that made me very comfortable to say, let's move forward. And going through this relationship with them, it's been a fantastic experience to say that from them coming in to actually observing our team members, meeting with them to understand the workflows, because it's very easy for a team member to say, I pass this piece of information over to this other group, and then they take 3 minutes to review it. Well, really, do they take 3 minutes to review 50 different items? I really don't think so. So Saris was able to come in and really help us understand what the actual timing of things were, process map everything, and really understand the value added work that they will be able to do, and the non-value added work that we can strip out of a process and implement with AI. So I'm really looking forward to, we're expecting about a 70% reduction in our process flows through the use of this funding bot, which, if comes to light, and I expect it will be a tremendous game changer for us. We'll be able to scale much more effectively and continue to ramp up our operations without having to add additional headcount.
Are you considering reducing the headcount?
We will not reduce headcount because of AI coming in. We will use, if we do have, for instance, if we have 10 people doing a process, and now because of the AI, we need to have 5 people, we're not going to lay off 5 people. We're actually going to take those 5 people, retrain and repurpose them into other facets of the credit union. Our intention is never to just lay off people because we've implemented an AI tool. We have a very aggressive growth goal, so we want to be able to put our team members into the places in which they can help support our growth and train effectively and move people around where we see fit and where it matches their skills as well.
Do you see these tools giving you a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. This, and not only competitive advantage, it also adds parity. Went through my MBA program, and my thesis for my MBA was how AI in mid-sized credit unions, 1 to 5 billion, can actually be a key differentiator to help keep up with the pace of large banks like Bank of America and TD Bank, et cetera. So this adds parity to us. We don't have the research and design, expenditures that they do. I mean, I think TD Bank probably they spend as much money as we probably have in assets, on their R&D budgets. So
9 figures every year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will never be able to keep up with them in terms of R&D. So what AI does give us is the ability to compete more effectively with them in the given marketplace. And now we start adding parity to that market, and we can start competing again on our purpose. And I'll go toe to toe with any large bank organization on purpose, when it comes to helping our communities out with any credit union. So I think that helps us. And then, Robert, to your question around the competitive advantage, I think there are going to be, in the future, and let's call it within 5 years, you're going to see you're going to see disparate impact to credit unions based on those that have leaned into AI at this time and those who have not and buried their head. And I think the ones that have leaned into AI are going to be much further ahead than those credit unions that are not leaning into the technology today.
I totally agree with you. I mean, one thing that has concerned me, worried me, if you will, is I have not talked with Chase about their AI initiative, but I've talked with them in the past about other initiatives like rolling out mobile banking. They throw more money at that than your institution will see in the next 3 years just to solve this one problem.
Yep.
And they hire a virtual army, actually a real army, and there's no end in sight to what they're going to do to get this to work. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, Chase is doing this, B of A, I'm sure, is doing it, a couple other big banks are doing it. So what happens to these credit unions, even big ones, that really can't afford to spend what Chase is spending. They can't even dream about it. It's so are you guys all out of luck? You're saying no. And because I mean, to me, the credit union advantage is the ability to use fintech talent to
Yep.
provide essential services that you can't probably do on your own.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's where the Sarises of the world really come into play for me. And yeah, I could absolutely go hire an AI solutions engineer or two and spend a ton of money doing that alone. They're not cheap employees, as I'm sure
Well,
Dan.
you read about billion-dollar paychecks, man. I mean, I don't know if it's really happening, but I read this and I say,
I can share more intel on that. Oh boy,
Yeah,
it's happening. But
it's
yeah, I can add a few data points here. And it's not, Robert, just a question for the credit unions. We're seeing even within larger banks, this is a prevailing issue. And so for example, I was in Florida I was invited to there's a group of bankers, 100 billion AUM plus. It was part of the shareholders meeting to do a presentation. And, one of the folks raised his hand and he says, like, how are you guys dealing with the inference costs? Right. And I don't know if you heard, for example, Microsoft has stopped or banned Claude in their
oh yes,
organization.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Uber ran through their annual token budget in 4 months. So really, even for banks, there is a bit of a struggle, which is first you got to hire AI engineers. They can cost up to 300K, for reasonable ones. The really good ones in Anthropic, I mean, they're making millions. There's no question about that. And then next, it's not just that, it's the inference cost. So now you're paying for all of these engineers. Then you're going to spend millions of dollars paying for these tokens and these token costs. And this was actually one of the reasons why we are so passionate about the credit union space, and something we do provide for our credit union partners, and Chase knows this, is we don't charge on token. It's unlimited usage, right? So that's something we do because we are well versed with inference. We do know how to reduce those inference costs and so on. So as a credit union who partners with Saris, it's really that peace of mind, right? We'll come in, deliver that nirvana that Chase spoke about, right? We have partners who are doing exactly that. The back office stuff is being handled end to end, and exceptions and when humans need to be escalated to, it's bringing it in front of them, right? Which is great. And support, maintenance, inference costs, you don't have to worry about that. We take care of it. So the credit union gets their predictability in terms of pricing. Plus, they get that safety in mind that, we will take care of all the AI development and so on. And I think that's really the fun part and the joy is like we're trying to level the playing field, right? Between the larger folks and the rest of the industry.
Is the predictability for 1 year? You give me a price, how long is it good for?
It's as long as the contract is there. And we usually, I would say every single credit union we've spoken to is jumping on multi-year contracts for that reason.
That's very smart right now. Chase, you were going to say something.
practical side of this is now I can actually have a budget that I can rely upon. And that's the scalability factor for me, because I can come to Daniel and Saris and say, here's another idea for a bot that I have. How much would it cost me to develop this bot to do X thing? And we can talk about that. And then I know my costs are going to be fixed for that bot price to be able to do the thing that I want it to do. So I have the ability to throttle how much I'm spending on my quote unquote R&D. That R&D really is through Daniel. And I don't have to worry about the unpredictability of the tokenization costs, the care and maintenance of, us standing up our own servers and doing something, on our own in-house developed thing. They take care of everything from cradle to grave. And that's comforting for me. I can come up with ideas. They can solve everything else from there.
How high up in the credit union did you have to go before you got the green light to pursue this?
Well, I am the head of AI, so I'm able I'm able to do
The
that.
buck stops with it.
Yeah. So I
So
report.
you could do that on your own. I mean, who did you need? What approval did you need?
Yeah, we
Some say in small credit unions, I hear, well, we had to take it to the board. You probably don't
no,
have that issue.
no, we don't have to take it to the board. We do inform the board, but we don't have to seek necessary approval for them. We do have a process here at the credit union that we have to put together a complicated business case, and we have to demonstrate ROI and the value of the CBA. So we will work through that. So I did that, and that goes in front of our CFO and our CEO and then us that are other executives, we look at those cases and say, yeah, we want to spend our monies here. And so I did follow that process. But yeah, my title, I'm the Senior Vice President for People and AI. So this is under my purview to say, these are the things I want to do, and this is how we're going to help the credit union grow and get more efficient.
Now, credit unions generally do not want to be first when it comes to technology. They much more comfortably be like fifth. It's
Right.
Oh, Navy Federal did it. Okay, cool. Talk to me. So why were you comfortable going in early?
We probably have a different risk tolerance than some of our credit union peers. And that's really driven from our CEO, Thomas Feint, who's a dynamic leader. I used to run risk management for Thomas before I came into this new role as the head of People and AI about 18 months ago. But so we really tried to think about how can we lean more into risk and the opportunity side of risk. So we've been undergoing a transformation in our risk tolerances for the past 5 years or so. And I think that really helped pave the way. I think before at the credit union, we probably do want to be that follower model versus kind of being more on the cutting edge of this. But we definitely see this, as Daniel alluded to earlier in the conversation, around this as being one of the biggest industrial revolutions that's going to occur. We totally believe that as well and are leaning into it. And if we want to lean into it, we need to do so smartly, but aggressively, and really learn through these processes. We've had AI attempts that have failed in the past, and each one of those are learning models. So we're throttling how much investment do we put into certain AI tools to see how things transpose over time. And we're very cognizant of, we know that there's going to be continual learning, test, and we're a very big test and learn organization. And then the final thing that I'll just add to this is that we believe that if you just look at the industry, how rapidly it changes, it's almost every week something new is launched. So we can't stay ahead of this curve. There is kind of no first out the entrance in this model. We're constantly changing too quick here. So we're tackling things as we can.
Well, you're actually doing things, whereas a lot of credit unions are talking about doing things.
Yeah, we're beyond pilots for sure.
And Robert, one important point to add here is also it's not early. We're not in the first innings. We're past that. If you look across other industries, whether it's healthcare or defense and so on, they tend to be even more conservative. This is cutting across every aspect of the economy and human life. Folks are using GPT. They've been using it for years, and it's just become woven as part of what they do on the day-to-day. So I would say that things are moving fast, and as Chase alluded to, things are evolving really fast as well. And the reason we're seeing quick traction across the industry is the stakes are very high as well, right? So if all of a sudden, and it goes back to that member experience and the efficiency gains are very real. I mean, I can mention another example of a credit union where within a couple of months we're doing about just under 50 million in loans every single month, processing that. The average time that an employee is spending on Saris every day is 4.46 hours. And on top of that, the average time, just like Chase said, is at 83 minutes. So they did the math, and it was taking them anywhere from 40 minutes all the way to an hour and a half to process these loans. Now they're doing it on average under 7 minutes, 6.5, 6.7 minutes. It's a huge increase. So when you have that level of productivity gain, you cannot afford to be on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, are you continuing to add agents?
Absolutely. So the way we operate is we've trained our models, and we have to do a whole bunch of custom work as well. So I think one thing that's unique about Saris is we're not just using tools. So as you alluded to, my co-founder and I, we went to University of Toronto, studied computer science. My third co-founder, Alice, we've published a paper, our machine learning model in Nature, which is one of the most prestigious science journals. Like, we spent over a decade in this space. I have a patent as well. We're actively looking at what's on the cutting edge, what types of research are coming out, and then commercializing it for our partners. And that sort of gives us a continuous edge. So as Chase was alluding to, things are evolving very, very quickly. But the beautiful thing about us is that as a AI company from within its DNA, we're evolving along with that. And sometimes we're pushing things as well. So one good example is we sort of built our own MCP version of an orchestration model, because the current one just, it's not really the best use fit for this industry or for like regulated industries. So one quick example is, let's say you were to use OpenAI GPT operator, right, or a cloud agent. So how would they work? Let's say you ask it to book a ticket for you, book a flight. So what it's going to do, it's going to go to the website, it's going to take a bunch of screenshots, spin up a virtual machine, train on it, break, run the workflow. If the workflow fails, it's going to try again, make some tweaks, and eventually it will succeed. But the challenge is that that type of model does not work in an industry where you have all these different systems. You may or may not have, API access, because like those models are built for the web first world where everything is structured. You have documents, you have unstructured data. And the biggest part is that you cannot have a workflow fail. So in that case, if a ticket fails, it'll try again. But when you look at a loan, or mortgages, you've got MLOs, you've got processors, you've got underwriters, you've got 4 or 5 different teams, right? And there are millions and billions of dollars worth of flow. You can't just go to team number 3 and oops, the process failed and you got to start again, right? So we actually had to do a lot of custom engineering around that and really pushing the edges of what's possible. So those are the examples that I wanted to share of how this is being done and how the technology is really, really being pushed.
You touched on this a few minutes ago, but how can you compete with the Anthropics, the Googles for talent? I mean, they have essentially Google has essentially unlimited money. I mean, it has more money than OpenAI. I mean, Google is rich.
Yeah. So that's a great question and fun story, because this is sort of a smaller community than people realize. So in my last company, we went through this program called Y Combinator YC, and this was back in 2016. And they invested in us, and the CEO of YC at that point was Sam Altman.
That was
so
Sam,
he was so he was a bit of a mentor as well. And so it's the same thing. The same question comes in is, when OpenAI started, Anthropic started, how do you, they also had to go through the same challenge. How do you compete with Google or Oracle or ABC, XYZ? And I think the answer to that is there is a difference between mercenaries and missionaries. And it's really, really important for startups. And I feel like that's what connects us with the credit unions as well, and why we align so well, because our values are very similar, right? It's a very mission-driven, startups are very mission-driven. We deeply, deeply care about our customers and our partners. And 2 things startups can do better than any large company. One of them is, you can pivot and you can move fast, right? Like large organizations are very slow moving, including Google. The second one is we're customer obsessed. And if you really think about it, credit unions are similar to, they deeply care about their members, right? And their community. And so I would say like that's the advantage that we have. And OpenAI, Anthropic, they all went through the same journey.
Yeah, I've talked with a number, not a big number, but a number of former AI people who at Google. Some of them probably were terminated because they weren't smart enough. I mean, Google's a very demanding organization. Some just they wanted a different environment, and they left and they found it at other companies, which is why Anthropic was founded. It was by people who were dissatisfied with OpenAI.
That is very true. And I think the other thing to remember is, it's a concept called burning the ocean. Even large organizations, so like the Anthropics of the world and the OpenAIs of the world, their focus is building a foundational model, right? For everything. They want to go through AGI. That is their mission. So they're going to be the best at it. And everything around that is just ancillary or revenue generating sort of streams for them. Same thing with Google, right? Like it is a product company, it's a search company fundamentally, and they're trying to organize the world's information. That's what they do. Our mission is, serving the credit unions and serving the banking system, across the US. So we're very mission driven for that. So at that vertical level, the depth we go, we're willing to do things, just as I gave you the example, that the larger foundational guys simply are not.
In 1999, I talked to Larry Page for an article I was writing for MIT's magazine. And he said to me, I want to index everything. And I thought, this guy's crazy. He's pretty much done it. What could I say? And even if he hasn't done it, he's never veered off course. I mean, it's the same mission.
He's very close. I mean, absolutely.
I think
Change.
one of the foundational things from a credit union's perspective is, especially those credit unions that don't really maybe understand AI or don't have a good partner yet identified to help them, they'll think about, where can I put AI? And I think that's a foundationally the wrong question. And I think the better question to ask is, where are people stuck? Where are processes stuck? And then you can start identifying those things. And does AI apply to that? So just reversing that question, I think would be helpful for credit unions to understand.
Well, I think also the way I think about it is that there's some processes where you say, geez, yeah, a machine can do 80% of this work.
Mm-hmm.
You think about a college and college applications. Probably 80% is either a clear admit or a clear reject. And then there's going to be a bunch in the middle that require some thought. Loan applications, I think, are pretty much the same. I don't know if my numbers are at all right, but it's clear, yes, it's clear, no. And if you could just find ways to move that into the hands of machines, there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, that's right. And then I got two more for you. One is that AI will not fix broken systems. They really, it kind of exposes broken systems. And that's something to think about as well. So you need to make sure that your processes, which is what I'm very thankful about what Saris does in their approach, is they will map out a process map of every single part of that process for you. It really helps identify, again, that non-value added work that you can strip out and improve the process as you implement the AI to do the tool. So that's really an interesting second component. And then the third thing is, when you think about, as I think about your question you asked me earlier, Robert, around people, how do we explain AI to our team members where they feel more comfortable? And yes, we can train our team members on how to use the AI, but the adoption is not just through training. We've got to help people move away from fear as a leadership group and into curiosity. And how can this really help us become much more competitive in the marketplace, help me in my career pathing? So there's an evolution of the team member mindset that leadership really needs to be very mindful of, and to eliminate this fear and uncertainty around what does AI mean, and really start bringing what Daniel talked about at the very beginning of the call, which is the augmentation of the human experience along with this technology to do better for the community. That's really the foundation that people should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think the complex issue for credit union leadership is you have to get on the AI train and you have to be willing to move very fast. On the other hand, you have to be cognizant that many employees are scared out of their minds about this, and they're not crazy.
No.
And you have to deal with both those things, going really fast in AI and somehow getting employees on board and understanding that this is the future, and here how we're going to help you be a member of the future.
That's right.
And I think another issue that we're seeing is there's also a lot of noise, right? So how do you shift the signal from noise? I mean, we've seen, I was speaking to like a CEO of a credit union, and she was like, well, I'm getting bombarded by all of these AI this and AI that's this AI fatigue at the same time is also becoming very real. And, once they actually reviewed the platform itself, and then they learned, like majority of the company is somewhere in India, right? So that's a whole compliance security issue that you have to deal with. There is a lot of noise, and I think there's a lot of tools out there. Like one of the benefits, or could be a con depending on how you look at it, of these foundational models and sort of cloud code is you can ship product and demos very quickly, right? And point solutions. And so you have this plethora of, companies that are just delivering specific point solutions. And I think that's not where the challenge lies in the industry, right? Like it's easy to build a point solution for a specific, very, small sort of a silo. But really the challenge is, how do you orchestrate? It's sort of like what Chase was saying his Nirvana vision, which is, the future of work is you have human employees, you have specific personalized workflows, you have these various systems, cores and legacy systems, you have structured, unstructured data, could be pictures, images, licenses. You have a regulatory requirement, a compliance framework. Like, so how do you orchestrate all of that? Where do agents come in? Where do humans come in? And building that kind of cohesive ecosystem. And I think that's really what we focus on, and what our superpower is, because that is something that's going to stay for the long term. Point solution, the challenge is anything deviates, anything changes, they just start to fall apart. And fundamentally, if you cannot build it into a proper system with outcomes in mind, then it's really just a demo, right? It's not really more than that. So yeah.
Cool. Before we go, think hard about how you can help support this podcast so we can do more interviews with more thoughtful leaders in the credit union world. What we're trying to figure out here in these podcasts is what's next for credit unions. What can they do to really, really, really make a difference in the financial scene? Can't all be mega banks, can it? It's my hope it won't all be mega banks. It'll always be a place for credit unions. That's what we're discussing here. So figure out how you can help. Get in touch with me. This is rjmcgarvey@gmail.com. Robert McGarvey again. That's rjmcgarvey@gmail.com. Get in touch. We'll figure out a way that you can help. We need your support. We want your support. We thank you for your support. The CU 2.0 podcast.